I turned 60 years old just a few weeks prior, and I officially retired from my job. I felt as though 100 pounds had lifted from my shoulders, and I went home one day feeling like my life had just started. But then, as soon as I walked in through the front door, my husband said something so unbelievable, it left me catatonic for multiple seconds.
You're no longer of any use to me. Get the hell out of my house now. I'm married to this girl here.
A younger woman, perhaps between 35 and 40 years of age, stepped from the doorway that led to the living room, and my husband put his arm around her. She had a wry smile on her face, and she passed her hand through her long, straight, brown hair, evidently emphasizing her looks. I don't understand.
We're already divorced, all right?
Your darling husband just abandoned you, sweetie. Now, he's gonna be mine forever. In response to these two people for making fun of me, on top of making me miserable for so long, I had prepared a little marriage surprise that was so perfect for them both. Now, hell shall break loose. My name is Sabrina, and I'm 40 years old. I work as a caregiver, and I unfortunately don't have many friends. I can't remember the last time I had a boyfriend, to be honest. That part of my life just seems so long ago, and I frankly can't remember who my old boyfriends were. It was basically that long ago, and I've been living alone for the longest time. I don't have any hobbies, and my daily schedule for my days off consists of walking or biking along the river. But recently, I've been wondering if I would remain single for the rest of my life, and I was struck with a feeling of intense loneliness and despair. I never wanted to be alone forever, and I told myself that it's not too late. It was probably the biggest decision of my life when I made up my mind to go talk to a marriage counselor. A few weeks later, that day was the day I was going to the first matchmaking party of my life. I put on the nice, new clothes I bought just for the party. I got my hair and makeup done at a salon. I basically took drastic measures to be as glamorous as I possibly could to appear respectable to the bachelors who might be attending the party. At the venue, there were 10 men and 10 women, and the facilitator handed out something that looked like profile cards. When I took a closer look, I saw I was right. The card showed the profile picture of each participant, as well as their names, ages, and occupations. After this, men and women were to be paired up and talk to each other for 10 minutes each. This was designed in such a way as to allow a good opportunity to find someone they like and with whom they believe they hit it off. However, I have never talked with a man close to my age, and I was too nervous to talk to the first one. Even more so, actually. I couldn't even look the first person in the eye, and with the second man, I only had the courage to say hello. The allotted time flew by much more quickly than I'd thought, and I told myself I couldn't go on like this. I promised myself that with the next bachelor, I shouldn't care about anything, just freaking talk to the man. I was doing this for my own good, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let this opportunity go to waste. That's what I vowed to myself, and I faced the third person from across the table. I gathered my courage and tried to talk to him, but then, the man greeted me cheerfully. He reached out his hand to shake mine, and as he did so, he said,
Nice to meet you. My name is Benjamin.
Nice to meet you, Benjamin. I'm Sabrina.
Sabrina? What a nice name. This is actually my first time coming to a matchmaking party like this, you see.
Actually, it's my first time too, and I haven't been able to communicate well thus far. In response to my confession, Mr. Benjamin responded,
So we're both on the same page. Here, I'm looking forward to getting to know you today.
A sweet, charming, childlike smile spread across his face as he said so. In that moment, I noticed my tension mysteriously dissolving. After that, We talked about our jobs, as well as other things such as how we spend our days off.
Talking with you, Miss Sabrina, is so much fun for me, and time flies by so quickly.
I was thinking the same thing with you, Mr. Benjamin. Maybe, just maybe, this is what I'm destined to be with for the rest of my life. Just as I thought that, I remembered that he had his profile hanging from his neck. Upon closer inspection, I discovered he's actually 10 whole years younger than me. For a moment, I was unsure about starting a relationship with him. I started to wonder if he was aware of this truth, and I was so curious about that, I decided to take the plunge and ask him. Mr. Benjamin, I thought about us being together forever, but the truth is that I'm 10 years older than you. As I talk, Benjamin was just staring at me, without saying anything back to me. What do you think about me being older than you, Mr. Benjamin? I was saying these things that I myself couldn't believe. My face was bright red at this point, and covered my face with my hands. Perhaps he felt a little sympathetic when he saw me in this state, because he went and said,
I don't care if you're 10 years younger or 20 years older than me, Miss Sabrina. I find you very attractive, and I'd like us to keep in touch after tonight, if that's all right for you.
He asked me to be his girlfriend on the premise that we would get married in the end, to which I was very grateful and accepted very enthusiastically. We dated many times and got married a year later. At the recommendation of my new husband, I continued to work as usual as a caregiver.
Let's divide up the household chores too. Can't impose it all on a woman who's working hard at her job now, can we?
Per his suggestion, the housework was divided evenly between the two of us. Since I was pretty proficient in cleaning and tidying things up, I was in charge of that, and since he enjoyed cooking, he prepared the meals, as well as washing the dishes afterwards. We took turns doing the laundry depending on the day. This made my life pretty easygoing and balanced, and I was always so grateful to be married to a man who takes initiative. Then, one day, Benjamin asked me about something important.
Sabrina, honey, I'd like to have children. I don't know if it's the right time, nor do I know you feel ready to bear the child, but I just wanted to let you know, and hopefully start trying.
Of course I felt the same way. I'd wanted children for such a long time, and now that I had a nice husband, I was convinced my dream would come true. From that day onward, I checked my basal body temperature every day, hoping to be physically able to get pregnant. I thought I would have been blessed with a child soon, but the reality was that I wasn't, and another year was about to pass before I realized how much time had gone on. I was curious as to why I couldn't have children, and I decided to go to the hospital. That's when I found out I was infertile. I was devastated. Benjamin, darling, the doctors say that it'll be hard for me to have a child. I'm infertile. I'm so sorry.
Oh, honey. Look at me. It's all right. Infertility can be treated, and we'll get over it together.
That's what he said as he hugged me tenderly. In that moment, I vowed to do my best to live up to my husband's wishes and began the infertility treatment with a burning determination. But the infertility treatment was harder and more expensive than I had ever imagined. All of the savings I had saved up during the time I was single had reached the bottom of the barrel fairly quickly. My parents passed away when I was young, so I only had one person I could talk to, and that was my husband, Benjamin. I need to talk to you about my infertility treatment. That's what I said, and I began to explain what exactly the treatment was and how much it cost. Benjamin's jaw hit the floor when I told him just how expensive the treatment is, and he looked sympathetic when I told him that my savings had reached rock bottom. We both knew that if we didn't do something about it, I would not be able to continue the infertility treatment.
I'll let you take care of the money, Sabrina. On one condition. I want you to leave all the housework to me. You just do what you think you should do to make enough to go on with the treatment.
So we decided to change our roles and our responsibilities. We agreed that I take the initiative and focus on my work, and that's exactly what I did. I thought about what I would do after we did have children, and I started studying for certain certifications. My husband was concerned about my health, and he took care of me very well by carefully planning what each meal would be each day, and he also took care of all the housework. We supported each other like a very good team, and our lives were going well. 2 more years passed in the blink of an eye. Even after that, I couldn't get pregnant, and Benjamin, who had been the kindest gentleman to ever walk into my life, had become someone very different. Around then, he always seemed to be in a bad mood, and the fact that one of his juniors at his job had been promoted to a better position than his didn't help at all. While one could always expect kind words and a soothing tone coming their way whenever he opened his mouth, once upon a time, he was now uttering sarcastic remarks about my inability to have children.
It's times like these that make me think I might have been able to work harder. If only I had a child.
And he would glance at me. I could do nothing but endure these little comments of his dissatisfactions with my infertility. It pained me to start to think about this, but I began to suspect that even if I did stay with him, the atmosphere would always be uncomfortable because of my situation, and I might never be happy with him again. As I thought about that, the word divorce started to take hold in my mind. But if I did divorce him, the loneliness I once felt, the same loneliness that I despised so much I resorted to matchmaking to be rid of it, was waiting for me, perhaps with a vengeance. At this point in my life, I would be alone again, and that's the last thing I wanted. I chose not to get divorced, and to endure and get over it. The years passed by like bullets through air, and I just turned 60 a few weeks ago prior. My marriage was at its worst. I don't talk to my husband anymore. Still, I thought I would spend the rest of my life with him. A few days later, today, I retired from my years of service in the caregiving industry, and clutching the letter of congratulations from all my colleagues and a bouquet of flowers, I went home. When I arrived, Benjamin, who had gotten home before me, stared at me. It was as though I was doing something wrong, but he didn't say anything. I felt I had no choice but to talk to him myself. I retired today. My friends at work kindly gave me this bouquet of flowers. Then, for the first time in years, I heard my husband's voice as he spoke to me directly.
What are you going to do tomorrow?
Well, let's see. I'm not so young anymore, so I'm thinking of just staying at home and maybe thinking of a hobby to pursue. When he heard this, my husband went on to say something so unbelievable it left me catatonic for multiple seconds.
Do you really think that an infertile piece of shit like you is going to be fricking allowed to live under my roof? Now that you're out of a job, you're no longer of any use to me. Get the frick out of this house now. These past 20 years have been a goddamn waste of my fricking time.
I was so surprised I just stood there, unable to speak. Benjamin's ranting did not stop.
I married you because I thought we both wanted the same things in life, especially children. And yet you couldn't have children, and you didn't do shit to try and fix that. Our entire marriage was nothing but a scam, and the fricking scammer is you. As alimony, I'll be taking half of your fortune and your severance pay. Then we might be even.
What do you mean alimony? With a smirk on his face, he went on to say,
I already divorced you, you see.
I don't remember signing anything that looked like a divorce document.
I don't need your signature for a divorce. The divorce papers have already been filed, and it was finalized about a month ago. I'll get the frick out of my house.
So basically, my now ex-husband had falsified my signature on the divorce papers and submitted it to City Hall. Did he really think that was acceptable? You don't understand anything, do you? What do you think my husband did when he heard me say that? If you thought he would ask me what I meant by that, you are unfortunately mistaken. What he actually did was smirk menacingly, rub his hands together, and replied,
No, Sabrina, you're the one who doesn't know what's going on. Unlike your old bitch ass, I'm still only 50 years old. Young, sprightly, and charming. And you know what that means. I'm going to start my life over. If you don't understand what I mean by that, so be it. You've proven to me you're as stupid as you look. If you understand, I applaud you. And I hope you applaud me back, because this great reset of my life is going to be the best and happiest decision I'll ever make. Now don't make me say this again. Get the frick out of my house.
You say you're still young, sprightly, and charming, but lest we forget, you're 50 years old, Benjamin. You're far from the young man you once were. I had had enough of my husband's disgusting selfishness, and I decided to leave the house, just as he told me to. I went to my bedroom and started packing my things. From the living room, I could hear my husband talking on the phone with someone. I wouldn't be surprised if he was bragging about his divorce. I just wanted to get away from someone who'd done such a terrible thing to me. The fact that this was the man I married made the packing pretty hard, as vision was blurred by my overflowing tears. I packed what I could bring with me as quick as I could. I just wanted to get the hell out of this hell. And then, I heard the doorbell ring. I could feel the presence of a guest, but I was already leaving this house, and I was now divorced from Benjamin, so it was none of my business. I grabbed my bags and stride into the living room. That's where I discovered a woman sitting on the couch with a travel bag at her feet. Benjamin was also there, sitting on the couch, right next to her. The two of them were talking amicably, and I immediately understood what this meant. When he realized that I was watching him, another evil grin spread across his face, and said,
I already married this girl, Sabrina. Her name's Valerie, and she's everything to me.
His head tilted back, and I could see his hairs protruding from the inside of his nose as he cackled manically. I felt sick to my stomach at the sight of what had once been my loving husband. I tried my hardest to suppress my anger, and I asked him, So you divorced me because you wanted to marry this woman? Is that what this is all about? Then, the woman looked at me in such a state of near-exploding fury and burst out laughing. Sweetie, your face is more terrifying than that of a rotting zombie. I'm pretty sure that face is exactly why your darling husband left you. Benjamin nodded his head in agreement and piled on the verbal abuse.
You're the kind of bitch who deserves to be thrown away. I don't even know why I ever married you in the first place, but I guess I should also thank you, because without you, I never would have met the love of my life.
They stare at me for a couple of seconds, a smug twinkle in their eyes, and then they laugh together as if they were proud of themselves for this triumphant moment. Of course, I agree. I'm a woman who deserves to be thrown away. I don't know why you ever married me either, but I have to say, life with you was pretty nice in the beginning. So you already married this girl? Well, congratulations. I'll get you a nice wedding present, and I'll make sure to give it to you soon. Is what I said that as I left the house. Needless to say, in this moment, I promised myself I would exact my revenge on them both. I stayed in a hotel for a while before finding a nice apartment to rent and started living alone again. I went to my former job, and I talked to the matron of the establishment, who agreed to let me work there for a little while. This allowed me to secure an income for the time being, and I was finally ready to prepare for my revenge against them. I hired a detective agency for an investigation into my husband's infidelity, and I also hired a lawyer to help me with all the formalities of the real divorce. I did whatever I could to help me get the most satisfying revenge I could possibly conjure. I was not accustomed to the administrative processes that came with what I had planned to destroy them, and I was at a loss at times. But then I imagined the look on their faces when they went to hell, and that ignited the flame of determination to do whatever it took to get what I wanted. I could do anything, no matter how hard it was, and I did do everything within a few short weeks. Then, a few weeks after everything was arranged, I got a call from my ex-husband. The first thing I heard was a yell of outrage.
What do you mean you're demanding fricking $100,000 in alimony? I already divorced you, you stupid bitch. You must have gone batshit crazy.
Oh my, such rude words, Mr. Benjamin Holbrook. You're the one who's gone crazy, it seems. You still don't realize what crime you committed, do you? My husband continues to yell at me through the phone.
I don't know what crime you're freaking talking about. You're not gonna freaking get away with this, Sabrina. Trying to get alimony from me. The sheer audacity. You're freaking wasting your time. Drop these demands right now, or I swear to frick I'll sue you for defamation.
When I heard that, I thought it was so funny that I couldn't keep myself from laughing. And I laughed hard. Like, I was actually bent over, wheezing and crying. I was laughing so hard I was afraid I would pass out. The fact that I laughed at him made him even angrier.
Oh, think I'm an idiot, do you?
Oh, no. You got it all wrong, my good sir. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just surprised you know a difficult word like defamation. That was a laugh showing I was impressed.
Shut your freaking hole right now. I knew you were making fun of me.
I could actually hear him breathing heavily through the phone. So in response to my ex-husband's behavior, I decided to calmly tell him a certain truth. Since you think you're so smart, would you mind telling me what document falsification means?
Documentary? What the frick does that even mean, damn it?
Refresh my memory here. Did you tell me that you pretended to be me in order to get both sections of the divorce documents filled in and stamped? In other words, you impersonated someone else in order to file for something they never authorized, and you hence falsified the information on the document. That's what document falsification is in a nutshell, and I'll clue you in on another thing. It's a federal crime. Those two words, federal crime, made my ex-husband react in such a way that I just knew he broke out in a cold sweat.
Oh, come now. You don't have to make such a big deal of it, and call it something that's clearly way out of proportion.
Counterfeiting official documents is punishable by penal servitude lasting between 3 months and 5 years. You sure want to do this? Think about Valerie. My ex-husband, after hearing all this, got furious once again for some reason, and said,
You're the one who started my unhappiness. Now you're trying to turn me into a criminal. How dare you call yourself a human? Show some mercy at least. I did what I thought we both wanted.
Falsifying divorce documents, having an affair behind my back, and kicking me out of the house on my retirement wasn't on the list of things I wanted, I'll be honest with you. And if I sue you on grounds for document falsification, you'll be deemed a criminal by the jury. I'm suggesting another way to settle this situation, and that's by you paying me $100,000 as alimony, because the last thing wants to be called is a horrible person. My ex-husband fell silent at that. And you want to know why I know you were having an affair? Because I hired a detective agency to look into that, and lo and behold, they found so much evidence of you being with her. I know that you met her at a cabaret. And then my ex-husband did the unthinkable. As though nothing had happened, he started to take the offensive.
That's right. As you know from your research, I was actually having an affair. I confess to it. But I'll have you know that adultery's not a crime. Sucks to suck. Couldn't be me, for real.
Oh my God. I wondered if Benjamin's stupidity knew any bounds. I found myself ashamed to have ever loved someone as heartless and as brainless as this inhuman bag of sewer slime. He seemed to still be under the impression that he was in the right. You're right. Adultery is not a federal crime, but you can still sue someone if you want to. Look like she's gonna have to pay me alimony too. As for the house and our joint savings, I'll be taking half of them both, as fair division of property. I suggest you prepare yourself for the onslaught, Mr. Holbrook.
No, wait a minute, please.
He was just about to say something, but I interrupted him by saying this as a parting shot. This is my wedding gift to you, as promised. You keep your end of the bargain and take it, okay? I spent so much time and money on getting you this gift. I hung up the phone immediately afterwards. I couldn't actually see the pain on their faces, which was admittedly disappointing, but I'm happy with the way things turned out. A few days later, the lawyer I'd hired told me that my ex-husband had agreed to pay alimony on his wife's behalf, as well as his own. After that, she filed for divorce herself, blackmailing Benjamin with his crime of document falsification into signing his section of the document, and she later moved out of the house. As a result of this, he's asking me to reduce the amount of alimony for his second wife, but there was no way that was a valid reason to reduce the amount, and he's now living alone in a small apartment, working hard from dawn till dusk to pay me his debts and monthly deposits. As for me, after working as a caregiver for a while, the old age was starting to get to me, physically, so the matron of the establishment introduced me to an office job, and as of now, I'm working as a desk clerk. When I was younger, I passed the exams needed to become a certified bookkeeper and secretary, so the fact that my current work is supported by decent bookkeeping and secretarial skills makes it easier for me as well as for the firm and pays a lot better. I used to be afraid of being single again, but when I started to live on my own, I found that this kind of lifestyle suited me. From now on, I'm going to enjoy living alone as a free, single woman and dedicate myself to my desk work and my newfound hobby of playing the ukulele. I'm going to live my life as full as it can be, and I hope I make many friends along the way.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.